2, apologies. We have an apology, I think, from Councillor Bolton.
Yes.
Councillor Turner. Have a seconder? Councillor Reid, thank you. Any declarations of pecuniary interests or special disclosures? Confirmation of the minutes of the last council meeting have been circulated. I'd like to move confirmation. Councillor Butler and Councillor Turner. Thank you. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to mayoral minute. There is none. First, the council.
Did we do both of them? So we've got.
For the extraordinary council.
Right, that's, thank you, Councillor Jones.
So happy to move the extraordinary one.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. We have a seconder. Councillor Butler. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 6.1, Marlborough Open Playground.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, could we bring the item 9.1, the minutes of the playground committee, to our current position in the meeting? So just about 6.1. Just seems right instead to consider those minutes before we address the items.
Everyone happy to do that? Okay. So we're going to straight to 9.1, minutes of the Marlborough Playground Project Committee held on the 17th of April.
That's through Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So moved.
Jones. Councillor Reid, thank you. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just note that it was a lengthy meeting on one item, but we had a robust discussion and a very thorough recommendation was put forward, noting not just the issue that stands before you today in terms of the current proposed playground site, but also the ongoing need for Category 1 playgrounds in Murray Bateman. And I say playgrounds as in plural, because we do have a growing community. And as you can see from the recommendation of the committee, we put forward that both the rec grounds and a new greenfield site be options for future Category 1 playground delivery due to the current and the future needs of that very growing community with a lot of young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Cameron.
Just a question for through you, Mr. Mayor, for Councillor Jones. I noticed the attendance at the meeting. How is the decision made to exclude the consultant, the Yass Valley Council consultant, Complete Urban, from the meeting? How was that made on this recommendation? How was it made?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No decision was made to exclude it by the committee. This was presented to us as a report from staff, and it has not been, I think, practice of council to have a consultant present when a committee meets. Usually you review that committee. We've had opportunities to discuss the item with the committee. We charged the consultant with the task, and that result has been presented to council.
I would have thought, if I make a comment, I would have thought that the consultant being there, and I believe the consultant was a person who was very willing to come to Yass and talk about the whole project. I was surprised to see that she wasn't there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Any further discussion?
Question,
Councillor
please, Mr. Mayor, through you. It does appear that the suggestion of these minutes show that the first preference was for the schoolhouse. The recommendation comes that it goes to the rec ground. Do I presume correctly, and it was on the addition of second preferences and the balance of a first and second preference vote, of which something I dislike intensely at all levels of local council. particularly the election that's coming up. Virtual voting is an abomination, and I just need clarification that that is the case. That it slipped into number one by virtue of being everyone else's second choice. Thank you.
Councillor Jones?
Does anyone have any other comments before I?
Well, I think we need some clarification on what Councillor Turner is saying. I thought it was, my understanding was that people were asked how they thought about this, and it was basically really first past the post, you know.
It's first past the post and we moved to Daisy.
I'll ask the
Sorry,
CEO to comment.
Well, the CEO wasn't there.
On the votes, yes.
So,
How was
you,
Sorry, Director. How was the vote actually taken?
so through you, Mr. Mayor, can you just clarify, you're talking about the vote at the committee meeting or
Yeah.
voting
No, the vote at the committee.
so through you,
Have
Mr.
I
Mayor,
misunderstood something?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
through you, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't actually present. If you look at the minutes of the meeting, I wasn't there. The
knew that.
acting Director of Planning and Environment and the Director of Infrastructure and Assets were present.
True, if I can
Clarify.
shed a lot of light on this situation.
Thank you.
So the vote at the committee meeting was 4 in favour of the recommendation, which included the old school site, 1 abstained and 1 voted against. The vote that you're talking about, that I think that you're talking about, in the consultant's report, which was
I see.
which was held at the rep grounds, which in itself is debatable whether that just threw the whole thing anyway, actually came out with first preferences in favour of the old school site. But if you joined second preferences, so people's second choice as well into it, you would get the Murray Bateman rep grounds. However, people were not told that you have to have a second vote. So some might have just decided, well, I only want the old school site and put their name there, or their red or their green sticker there, or they only voted for the red grounds and voted there, while some would have used multiple stickers and voted for their first, second and third preferences. So I think in that instance, because people weren't specifically told, use all 3 and go ahead and vote, I think in that instance we should dismiss the use of second preferences, in which case you get the old school site. Having said that, I want to fully acknowledge the limitations of this consultant's report. Firstly, the fact that only 2 sessions were held at the rep grounds in and of itself is limiting. However, I acknowledge that it has utilised the extensive survey work for a Category 1 playground, which the MCA conducted. However, we are not dealing necessarily with the funding for a Cat 1 playground in this instance. We have to deliver an all abilities playground with the money that we have to hand. And we need to deliver it soon because this is the community that is in need. Other limitations of the consultant report. Given the information that they had at hand and using only their experience with Crown lands, they determined to put a particularly heavy weighting on avoiding a Crown land site. And that has come out in preference of the rep grounds instead. However, today we have from our CEO communication from Crown Lands that they see a very clear way forward to using the Crown land site for the delivery of the playground. Thirdly, something that concerned me greatly with the consultant's report is that it did not do due diligence to the issue of passive surveillance, which is an important concern for parents all over Australia when they're accessing playgrounds, not just for themselves, but also for their independent users of their playground, children, say around the age of 10 and upwards, getting on bikes and going to playgrounds by themselves. Now, the issue of passive surveillance was not, in my mind, adequately addressed. However, on the opposite end of this consultant's report is a terrific level of consultation in terms of getting out there to the school, particularly to talk to the children about what they wanted in the playground. Now, I think if you were to find that if this survey had been held, 6 steps outside of the school grounds, you would have got a very, very different result. Because here are families living on that side of Murray Bateman who utilise the school, the preschools, the services, the shops there that are all on that side, along with the estates, the majority of the estates. So to my mind, I think the Playground Committee has delivered you some clear instructions about what's needed in Murrin Bateman, a Category 1 playground for the future, with a way forward to deliver a playground with the money that we have to hand.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Speakers against? I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Cameron? Thank you, councillors.
True, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, that was just the minutes, wasn't it?
It was just right here. Well, back you way.
This time.
So you now want to do the accepting the minutes, actually report.
Just 1.3 as well, which is.
Yeah, I probably should have had. You're right.
That's
a bit slow.
And then you
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
So we're back to 51. Okay, there is a recommendation,
Sorry.
side determination.
We accepted the minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. No. So we moved the minutes.
Yes, the minutes have been
And then
adopted.
that has been adopted.
Yes.
Minutes been
That's
adopted.
done. We can tick off like.
And now we're back to 6-1. Murrin Bateman Playground side determination.
I'm
There is a
happy to move
recommendation.
that.
Thank you, councillor Butler. Do we have a seconder? No seconder? I think, thanks, councillor Adams. Okay, discussion?
I'm happy to start. Happy to start. I am going to read off my computer because it's a little bit long, this one, and my brain wasn't capable of remembering all of this. So firstly, I just would like to give a little bit of a background to the history of this specific project, because many of you know that it's something that's really close to my heart. On the 21st of May 2021, which is almost 3 years to the day, I wrote a letter to the Honourable Christine McBain out of sheer desperation for the need of a playground for the children of Murrin Bateman. This was after years of me engaging council, attending meetings with the executive team, hosting playground protests, creating community surveys, and continuously speaking to the community about the matter. There was no discussion about size, delivery in stages, amenities buildings. It was just for a humble playground that would fill a gap while Murrin Bateman grows. She resonated with my frustration and she made an election commitment of $750,000 to build a non-site specific, all abilities playground for the children of Murrin Bateman, a promise that she kept and she delivered. Council contracted an independent consultant, Complete Urban, to undertake the community consultations and to guide council on preferred location, equipment and design. The Murrin Bateman Playground Committee met on the 17th of April to discuss the recommendation by Complete Urban that the recreation grounds was the preferred location for the playground based on second preference votes. I was shocked when I saw this, not only because I felt that the methodology used was incredibly strange, that first preference was no longer first preference based on second preference, but also because I was at both of the community consultations in my role as an elected council official, and the overwhelming response from the community once they got to visualise the location of a playground on the land from an aerial view, and also had an opportunity to speak to both council and the consultant in regards to the sites and the playground, which to date they had not had an opportunity to do. It was plain as day that the old schoolhouse site was the first preference. I have done a lot of community consultation over the years. My time spent as the 2019 founder and former president and accidental lifelong volunteer of Murrin Bateman Little Athletics Club. a parent of 2 children at Murrumbateman Public School, the founder and organiser of a kids crochet and craft club that meets every Sunday. It gives me the privilege to spend a lot of time with families that will use a playground. The desire to have a playground on the village side of Murrumbateman has been the overwhelming response that I receive when I speak to the people that will use this facility for what it is, a children's playground. The themes are always the same when it comes to the reasoning behind this. 1, not wanting the children to be crossing the Barton Highway, possibly multiple times per play, especially the independent users, which could be anywhere from ages 10 years and up. The pedestrian island, as it is right now on the Barton Highway, is incredibly narrow and very short. You'd struggle to get 2 adult-sized bikes next to each other without the wheels encroaching on the highway. To reinforce the seriousness of this, the Murrumbateman Primary School is holding an athletics carnival at the recreation grounds on the 13th of June, and they are hiring 3 buses to ferry the children literally across the highway because of the safety issues. There was no other options given. That was just what they have to do. 2, lack of supervision at the recreation grounds and the risk for stranger danger. The potential placement of this playground is not in a centrally located area. It is tucked behind the tennis courts in an open, shadeless paddock, and will need to share public toilets that are purpose-built for passing through traffic. This area can be incredibly busy at times and at other times completely isolated. Both of these situations can be dangerous when it comes to children. The community wants safe and easily accessible access to the playground via walking and cycling modalities. The playground at the old schoolhouse site, if it goes there, connects directly onto one of the central footpaths that links 12 estates, including the village and the surrounds. And finally, the community wants to be able to access food and drink outlets easily and safely. From the old schoolhouse grounds, it's just a stone's throw on a footpath to Fairley Square, which has 2 fantastic food outlets, the pub, Cafe 16, or the takeaway shop, all without crossing the highway. Our delivery program that takes us up to 2026 states that a Category 1 playground should be delivered to Murrumbateman, and I completely agree with this. However, the funding that we have available right now is nowhere near enough to provide that at this time. The money that we have available right now will deliver a fantastic playground to lock up stage. No need for any additions or waiting for extra funds from council or if grants become available. In my eyes, this will be Murrumbateman's first official playground. I will not accept that the outdated play equipment that has a stamped use by date of 2009 on it and essentially belongs to the church, or the lonely set of swings at a rest stop on the recreation ground side of the highway is classified as a playground for Murrumbateman. This will be the first of many playgrounds that the community needs. A Category 1 playground is absolutely coming, but this grant funding is not for it because we can't make it stretch that far right now. I promised the community that we would be getting a playground and this funding will deliver that start to finish. A playground located at the old schoolhouse grounds, designed and placed in a sympathetic way that complements the land, will not be a detriment to this site. It will be a reinvigoration that this site needs so that the present children of Murrumbateman can enjoy this beautiful space that the children of Murrumbateman past once enjoyed. So I'd like to see it come full circle, and I'd appreciate you showing your support to this recommendation tonight so we can finally deliver a playground to Murrumbateman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Speakers against the motion? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. You can speak against the motion, if you like. Look, I'd like to start off by congratulating Councillor Butler for her persistence in chasing Christy McBain, our federal member, Labor member, for the $750,000. I think that was extremely admirable that you were persistent in following that up and making sure that that money came through. I think that was excellent. I also would like to congratulate the Murrumbateman Community Association to the original survey that they actually did previously. It was attracted a significant response of, I think, 300 people, or approximately 300, which is about 10% of the Murrumbidgee population, which I think any council would be very happy with that sort of response for a survey. I also think that they should be complimented on the detailed cost-benefit analysis that they did before a consultant was engaged. It was a great deal of work on the issue, and I think it presented an overwhelming statement that there is a need for such a playground. I was looking at the minutes of the playground project of the 17th of April, and there was a remark there that said that they took into account that in regard to the recommendation, the consultant's report with an emphasis on the SWOT analysis. Now, I've done a lot of SWOT analysis. I've conducted them, and I have participated in them. And I find that looking at the SWOT analysis for the old school site is unbelievably weak in the failing to mention the numerous difficulties this site faces before any construction is undertaken. So I think the area where its weaknesses and threats is not managed very well at all, and is definitely not very comprehensive. It doesn't take into account that the Crown is involved with that particular site. There's no heritage plan. There could even be a possible native title claim. The parking there would be very constrained. Whether or not there's a safe entry in there is another factor. People have talked about building a fence on the Barton Highway side to stop children running onto that particular area. And also the public school is maybe after the land as well in some ways, let alone the fact that was brought up at a pre-council meeting of the issue of the toilets and the demand that the toilets be of a very high standard. So I'd just like to say that I think that particular analysis of that particular site was very, very superficial, in my opinion. I think I'm voting against that particular recommendation, or this particular recommendation, on a number of grounds, 3 grounds. I think Councillor Butler said that she's talked to a lot of people, and I take that on board. But we did have a survey by the MCA, and that was fairly thorough and fairly straightforward for the site at the rec ground. Also, the MCA survey, maybe Councillor Turner doesn't like preference voting, but so be it. It did come up with a 48.5% selection of the rec ground as the preferred place for the site of the playground. I think the second point that I'd like to make is that Council has allocated, which I think is brilliant, $200,000 to get Complete Urban to do this total package of managing that particular project. And the first part of this, you're basically saying the first of 3 parts is basically being rejected. And I find that really quite astounding that you've got consultants coming in and being paid a reasonable amount of money, and then their suggestion is rejected. I don't believe that we reject very many consultant reports. We don't tend to reject reports by experts and consultants in regard to bridges and roads, and I'm not sure why we're rejecting this particular one as well. I think recently I heard a number of councillors basically saying that they didn't want to delay this particular project, and I can sympathise, empathise with them on that comment. However, I believe that choosing this site that's recommended at the moment, in my opinion, means that the many hoops that we have to jump through to get this through will significantly delay any chance of this being constructed on time. And I'm not sure what the time limit is. I did ask previously whether it was the end of 25 or the end of 26, but I still think that if you have to choose this particular site and go through all those hoops, including the Crown land, which I think a lot of the process there is mandated, which I think means that we're going to take a lot of time to clarify that particular situation. I think the delay will mean that construction, if it happens, will be very rushed. Thank you.
Through Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you, councillor Cameron.
Could I was about to call you the Minister for Planning. That's okay, that's a page up. Sorry, the Director of Planning, respond to the comments regarding the site and the delivery.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So just in relation to the Crown Lands issues, I've had a conversation and an email from the Crown Lands, and they don't believe that the obstacles that we thought were there actually exist, and that we will be able to progress it in a manner probably quicker than we originally thought. I'm waiting for that to be confirmed again in response to be confirmed again to me in the next week or so. So, and those issues around the Crown lands, I believe, like the native title, the additional use and that sort of thing, like they have advised that they don't believe these issues are an obstacle and have actually been resolved to a certain point. The land does need a plan of management. There's a draft plan of management that relates to just the current Crown Reserve that the school sits on. That will need to be reviewed, but we do have that documentation prepared. It's been there for a while now, because that was part of the project that we had been working on over the last couple of years. In terms of the funding and the playground, so the funding agreement states that we would deliver it by the 1st of November 2025. That was what I advised to council earlier in the week. And in terms of the issues around site preparation, that sort of thing, well, that's all built in, that would be built into the project. I just would like to clarify one point from Councillor Cameron around the $200,000. That's actually not the amount that the consultant has been engaged for. That is the amount that's in council's budget
For the project.
for this part, for the site selection and the designs. Council has set aside $200,000 in the budget. The consultant has not been engaged for $200,000. I just think we need to clarify that.
Speakers for the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this original report, and like Councillor Cameron took the thing at face value, large chart that was all green on the page, which showed that the rec ground was the place that it was going to be. The more I thought about it, and the more I really brought up the issue of the reduction in the size of the playground as a result of building an amenities block that the school has, and reduction in that, and obviously the need to spend it on an amenities block rather than the one that currently exists. It crossed my mind that the major portion of the population of Murrumbidgee lives on the western side of the highway. Simple fact of life. They don't want to cross the highway to get to the playground. They don't want to cross the highway to have to get to the loo. And therefore, their thoughts have to predominate in deciding where the population of Murrumbidgee is going to have their playground. This is not just for today, this is for the future. We have a vast tract of land in North Murrumbidgee, which is going to be on the wrong side of the highway. And don't tell me that the highway is going to bypass Murrumbidgee, because it's not in my lifetime. I doubt that it's going to happen in the lifetime of anyone else in this room. Everybody is going to be on the wrong side of the highway if we put the playground at the rec ground. It'll be on the right side of the highway if we put it at the old schoolhouse. A lot has been said about the impact on the heritage of it. We have a wonderful heritage building out here at the other side of Yass, the only building in Yass which is advertised on the highway, the home of Hamilton Hume, historic building that sits there day after day, empty. Nobody goes to it. It's a tourist attraction. It's an attached heritage attraction. It should have something else that attracts it to go to Cooma Cottage. It should have a museum or antique machinery or whatever to become multi-use. Same thing with the schoolhouse. If if the schoolhouse is going to be of historic value to anyone at all, it has to have something else that attracts it to it. If it's going to be a playground, let's make it a playground for the future.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Mayor. First off, let me say, if it's a category 1 playground and we can't get one at Hawthorne for another 10 or 15 years, then I'm in favour of putting it on the recreation ground. However, I think Butler has pointed out, that was never the aim in the first place. Our aim was simply to have a really good playground for the kids. And we have the money to spend. The old school grounds are an ideal spot because of all the different things we've heard so far. Toilets, yes, I would like to see some toilets on the other side, on the western side of the highway. We don't have them, and most people end up going to the pub, which the pub doesn't like that. There's been a number of issues raised as to why it shouldn't be on that ground. And those issues, some of those issues need to be addressed regardless of whether we put a playground there or not. There's an old school well that needs to be made safe. If there's some asbestos on that land, then we as council have a responsibility to clean that land out. And whether we have the playground there or not, those matters should be kept separate from this. One of the things that really annoys me is the misinformation, disinformation, and what have you that goes out into the community and comes back as some kind of a reality. I'm hearing over and over again that the school is meant to be using part of that land. The school has not ever planned for the school after school expansion is already on the land that the school is involved in. And I reconfirm that today with the principal, Liz Beasley. The land that there is an area marked out that said this is for school expansion. It is not for the school expansion. And that is, to my mind, the ideal spot for a playground. I just cannot accept that if all we're trying to do is build a small playground for some kids that has some kind of challenge to it, other than these tinkly little things that we've got at the moment, why we can't just get on with it and use that land. So I'm in favour of the motion.
Thank you, councillor Rowe. Councillor Jones.
Firstly, I want to thank the Murrumbidgee community for engaging with this process. Part of the issue of what the consultant could do online was the fact that there'd already been engagement in the community regarding a Category 1 playground for Murrumbidgee. And rightly so, because it was in our delivery plan to do so. And so that is what the MCA ran with, and it was a commendable survey. And I just want to thank them very much for that, that wealth of information. Secondly, I want to thank the amazing Kristen Butler for her advocacy, which brought our federal members' attention to this dire community need. And she's to be absolutely commended. I'll try and add a round of applause in a second here too. But for this wonderful mum who stepped up to the plate, not only to advocate for the community, but then to follow it through, which meant getting elected onto council and to trudge through all of the, well, you're never thanked for this role, because you've come to that conclusion, but to actually follow it through, which is what she's done, has been absolutely commendable. And for a whole bunch of other reasons, I'm very glad that she decided to come on board on council. I want to thank our federal member for making this pledge that's actually making this possible. This wouldn't be possible unless Christy McBain turned up to that community protest and said, let's get this done. This should be, and it is, a joyous moment for community and for council to have the privilege of delivering this into this community, a beautiful spot in the community. When there's a lot of conflict or confusion about an issue, I do tend to go and put my feet on the ground in whatever location that we're choosing between. And when I was standing at the old school site, looking around, thinking about a very sympathetic playground with families picnicking here, kids arriving on their bikes down the beautiful tree-lined pathway. The school is within Kui. Behind is Mecca, the preschool. You can see Fairley Estates preschool from there. It all made perfect sense. And what an amazing reactivation of a site that once upon a time held the laughter and squeals of delight of children, and they will be back there. We should not be too precious about historical sites. And I commend Councillor Turner for his comments that this is a site that needs reactivation. And with the Crown Lands Improvement Fund as something that will annually produce an opportunity for us to go for more grants, I can see that this is a site that will blossom. And like the orchard there, I look forward to seeing many volunteers come down and lend a hand, because Murrumbidgee is known for its strong community, strong volunteers, and what could be possible at that site to create this playground and also reinvigorate the old school building into community use. The sky's the limit, and I commend this motion to council, and I look forward to the ribbon moment where we can once again hear children laughing and playing on that site.
Any further speakers for or against? I'd just like to say that I support the old school grounds as the location also, and I reflect on my time as a parent taking my children to Yakka, and afterwards we all went to Banjo Patterson Park, which was so conveniently located, and when they went into primary school we used to make our way up to Coronation Park most afternoons after school. It's very handy, it's safe and it's accessible, and it's a beautiful environment, and at the present time it's really a dead patch of land. So what better use could you have? I'm sorry that it's created some divisions within the community, but I think it's the best. I agree with the majority of what councillors have said. So Councillor Butler, thank you very much for your advocacy. I mean, it does take a hell of a lot of determination to keep on going. You've kept on going, and hopefully you'll be rewarded for your efforts. Thank you to the Murrumbidgee Community Association for their input. It's been very valuable, and where would we be without the Community Association in Murrumbidgee? So thanks very much. Councillor Butler, would you like to close the debate?
I'm
Or
happy.
to vote?
I'm happy.
Okay, I'll put the vote then. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Cameron. Thank you, Councillor. So that motion. Okay, next item is 6.2, modification development consent, BA 200158, Tree Lot Hill subdivision. There is a recommendation. Councillor Jones. Councillor Butler. Any discussion? Thank you, Councillor Burgess.
This block of ground in County, it's just outrageous that they've got to pay $270,000 to bring the power from way over near the pub all the way down to the shop and then back up to the blocks. If the blocks wasn't turned around, what happens? They can just put the power on those lines. What's the difference? I just can't believe they're going to make these people pay to turn the blocks around. And where the house is, the septic tanks on this block on this side where they want to turn them around, and then the other two's down there. I think it's outrageous, and I can't believe that councils make them do it.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. Any other comments?
I'm not sure, the question might be directed to planning, is it? Thank you, through the CEO. Julie, are we, the council, forcing the issue with the power, or is it the power company saying, or even another state government authority saying that this is what the way it must be? And if so, is it possible to have a different way of delivering the power to these blocks? underground, off the corner, whatever.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the LEP has a provision that requires satisfactory arrangements to be in place for development, and subdivisions come into that that requirement. And council actually has a policy around what satisfactory arrangements involves. And in the case of the RU5 village land, it is the that satisfactory arrangements need to be made for electricity to the lots. So that is the standard requirement for subdivision and realignment of boundaries, like that's been touched on in the report. How that satisfactory arrangements is reached and the cost of that, that's not council. So we just ask for the proof that the satisfactory arrangements are there. So look, the report fleshes out two options, and it talks about the for and against, but at the end of the day, and I have to say this as a director of planning and as a planner, that it is appropriate that satisfactory arrangements are in place for subdivisions. Really then it becomes a question for council around in this particular circumstance. But just noting that without the realignment of the boundaries, it is what it is. But with the realignment, essentially it is unlocking the development potential of that land.
Councillor Jones.
Through Mr. Mayor, we have a duty of care to protect our future residents from landing a lemon. If you buy into a community that has power and then you realise that your block does not, and you are left to pick it up and try and get this connected, that is an unfair outcome. And I would hate for any young family to buy a block, buy into the dream, only to be dealt this hand, and it is our duty to make sure that the necessary arrangements are in place at this level. And until such time, when there is reliable off-grid and the state government says, with our blessing, we have to do our due diligence in this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Burt.
Can't they have solar power there
Through you.
for electricity? Like I built a house here 2 years ago and we've got all solar power.
Yep. So through you, Mr. Mayor, that council's policy when it relates to RU5 village land is that the notice of arrangement from Essential Energy around electricity needs to be provided. It's different in different zones, so the rural conservation zones have slightly different requirements.
Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, look, I've already mentioned that I thought that the report that's been delivered to us is a really interesting read, that it really weighs up both sides of the argument really quite well. I think from my point of view, I think one of the things that is mentioned a couple of times in the report is how off-the-grid supply of electricity is becoming more and more desirable. And I think that's the case, that if you've got solar panels, if you've got batteries, and all of these things are becoming cheaper, then I think we're going to have that demand increasing over time, not only in the outlying areas, but also within the RU5 village land as well. And I do take the point that we do have to follow what's in the LEP at the moment. It's 2013, and I believe that that's up for some sort of look at some stage, and maybe we'll have to have a look at it at that situation. I think one of the other comments that's made in it is, in this report, is that I've looked at, is that we don't want to create an undesirable precedent. Precedent's a really interesting thing from my point of view. I think this is a fairly unique situation, that it's really a future realignment of 3 blocks in a 3-block development. I think it's a very, very restricted precedent. I think you could run an argument very easily on the fact that this is not a precedent that applies to other developments as well. And for those reasons, I support the applicant's request, and I'll vote against the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Councillor Burgess and Councillor Cameron.
We have three.
Okay, 6.3. Development application DA 238454, animal breeding establishment.
15 Mylora Street. There is a recommendation in the report. Councillor Rood moved, seconded Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, through you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbey.
I have a couple of questions to the Director of Planning and Environment. So my first question is, if this DA is approved, how will Yass Valley staff monitor that this animal breeding establishment is being operated in accordance with the long list of policies and legislation as outlined in your report? That's the first question.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, the conditions of consent will, if council was to resolve that way, would be in place, and council can either undertake spot inspections if it feels that it needs to, or it can otherwise respond to complaints in accordance with the enforcement policy.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that actually has foreshadowed what was my second question, which was, I'll read it out. Will the monitoring of this breeding establishment be proactive, e.g. unannounced visits, or merely reactive, i.e. just waiting for complaints?
Through you, Mr Mayor, any type of compliance monitoring really has to be based around what other enforcement activities we have, or monitoring activities that we're undertaking at any particular time. And I think that the consent will be in place. If we feel that we need to undertake monitoring, the staff would do so. However, it really is a case of, I think, that you have to consider the purpose of the enforcement policy and what's appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbey. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, just as a side point, I don't know the Bynalong area that well. Are there other facilities like this in the area, to your knowledge?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe maybe there is one additional facility, but I'm not, look, to be honest, probably best to just say I'm not absolutely certain that there is. There might be one that I know of, but
All right, just
uncertain, like, yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm sort of asking the question because is Bynalong become the animal breeding area for the Yass Valley?
Look,
Probably.
no, I'm not going to respond to that.
Okay, very good.
I'll respond to questions about this DA.
Surely, Mr Mayor, I mean, just two animal breeding establishments in a village make it the animal breeding establishment of the LGA. I think there's quite a number, right, spread through many of the rural areas as well. So I wouldn't say it would be the hub and mecca of animal breeding. There was two.
I suppose you could describe all the farms that we've got as animal breeding facilities.
Big dogs, yeah.
The thing is, we're out on no selection. We're not plonked in town.
True, that's true. Councillor.
In response to Councillor Cameron there are a number of puppy factories in the Yass Valley, most of them down the dog trap road. Obviously, the puppy factories like to have an access to marketplace of Canberra is very much better than Bynalong. As far as intensive farming is concerned, Bynalong, of course, at one stage was the greatest producer of game birds. I know they don't make noises like puppies, but they certainly generate traffic and they generate an enormous amount of dust and a whole lot of people going backwards and forwards buying quail, pheasants and other assorted birds. We've known Bynalong for quite some time. Yes, it is used to having intensive farming practices in Bynalong.
Thank you. History.
Councillor Jones.
Firstly, I was quite shocked to see that such an establishment was operating without approval. That was a very slick business arrangement. It would appear that not much expense had been spared in terms of setting it up. That's a level of confidence in not getting caught that I just cannot fathom. For us to turn around and shut down such an establishment is a big ask. And I think it's important that that these establishments are registered, because I'm very concerned about the potential for animal cruelty, where there is no legislated approvals. So at least in this instance, now that it's come to our attention, any of those kinds of complaints can be addressed should they come up. Having said that, having inspected the site, it seemed to be well-run operation. And while I'm not a fan at all of the mode of of this particular type of business, that's not what we're being asked to deliberate on here tonight. What I would like to ask the Director of Planning and Environment is three things. There was a lot of stress at the forum regarding this, that it could switch from a breeding facility to a boarding facility, and I wanted to first check that that's not the case. A reapplication would be required.
Yep, through you, Mr Mayor, they're seeking development consent for an animal breeding establishment. I realise in the definition there's a range of uses associated with that, but they are looking at breeding only, so they would need another development application to board animals.
And the issue of how many dogs are actually allowed on site and what constitutes the adult versus puppies, can you clarify for us what's been agreed upon between the parties in terms of what that will look like and what age?
Yep. Through you, Mr Mayor. So it's 25 adult dogs, 40 puppies, which become considered to be like an adult dog, I suppose, at 6 months. So the initial proposal, and I think it comes back to the noise assessment, was that the puppies would be considered to be puppies until 12 months of age. They've now agreed to take that back to 6 months of age, and that relates also back to the issue of noise that could be generated on the site, particularly if the animals are outside being exercised. So then they're further limited in the exercise yards to 5 adult dogs and 5 puppies up to the 6 months. I gather from the information that's in the report and the site inspection is that it's unlikely that you would have, say, 40 puppies from the age of 6 months to 12 months existing on the site. I understand that they leave the facility somewhere around 8 to 12 weeks of age, and only those who are being kept for breeding stay.
And the third thing was regarding the community confusion about wanting the operation of this site to not be 24/7. Looking at the report, the way that that's worded now is regarding the limitation on nighttime activity. Is that correct?
Yes. Through you, Mr Mayor, so it's the limitation essentially on when the animals can exercise outside. By nature of what it is a 24-hour operation, but I think the majority of the activity obviously will occur within daylight hours, and that's going to be detailed through the plan of management. And just in relation to the noise activity, the noise generated, they will be undertaking some measures to reduce noise from the actual area where the dogs are housed.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make a comment that I just find that this issue, I wasn't able to be at the planning forum, unfortunately, but I just think that there's so many good people in Yass Valley that follow the rules, and they go after a DA and they sit and they wait and they wait and they wait. And then we have others that just go ahead and do whatever they want to do and then ask for essentially a retrospective DA on something that they've already done, and then we approve it. And so I'm just incredibly frustrated by that. And I assume that council is also frustrated when that happens. And it just feels like sometimes we have no leg to stand on and we just have to, and it just sends a really poor message to the community that says you can just do it anyway. And I just want to acknowledge the people that put in and do the right thing, and they sit and they wait and get approved, and others don't. I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, councillor Butler. Would you like to comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think I myself was quite surprised at the extent of the activities that had occurred on that site without development consent. Look, the legislation does provide a pathway for this to be addressed, and they have come forward and lodged their development applications and their building information certificates. And council's dealing with it as per the enforcement policy. So I really would like to acknowledge the compliance team who've been dealing with this issue, and the development control team who have also been dealing with this matter.
I think most of us share your feelings, councillor Butler. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I share your feelings, councillor Butler, on this particular issue. It sounds like to me it's a bit like what Tony Abbott used to say. It's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for approval. And, you know, I was quite shocked when we went out there to see what had already been constructed. You know, the major building there, the shed, you could put in a commercial plane in there. You know, I was just amazed at that. So I think I agree with you that I don't think this is the proper way. It's very unsatisfactory. Unfortunately, I think voting for this suggests this is an okay way to proceed, i.e. that you ignore council requirements and then ask for it to be resolved. I think the size of it makes it very difficult to say, no, we're going to ask you to pull it down, etc. But if it was a lot smaller business, a lot smaller activity, maybe that would happen. So I think I'm very unhappy about it, and I'll vote against it.
Thank you, councillor Cameron.
The adults in the room will look after it.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
As the moving of the motion, I'll just finish that off if I might. I agree with all that's been said so far. I personally don't like the idea of approving DAs in retrospect, but having seen the establishment and seen our compliance team has been out there and made sure that everything is, as far as we can tell, being built to all the right specifications, and I think, you know, as Councillor John said, that we should recognise that they're doing the right thing in coming forward and in going through this DA process. And now we have, at least we can have the taps on them and keep an eye on what's going on. So, yeah, in favour of passing this at the moment.
Thank you, councillor Reid. Happy to vote then? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Councillor Cameron. Item 6.4, 2023-24, third quarterly budget review statements. There is a recommendation. Councillor Reid and Councillor Burgess. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I'll put up an alternate motion up on the board. I've just been noticing that the quarterly business review statement does not include a statement on cash and investments as required by the RLG guidelines. This is attached to Appendix 4. What this particular statement includes is really basically what the cash situation is. And it's in three parts. What's the unrestricted cash you can use, the externally restricted and the internally restricted cash. So I think we need to perhaps get an overview of this on a regular basis. I don't think this has been done in the past. I think it's something that's been missing. I understand that the personally, the Director of Corporate and Community is not here. But I do note that we do have some difficulty in regard to our cash situation. And I'll just point out,
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Is this actually a foreshadowed motion because it's put up as an alternate motion, yet we've just put a motion. So I think what Councillor Cameron is proposing is now a foreshadowed motion.
fine.
Yeah,
Through, yeah, it's not foreshadowed because the motion's already been made.
Sorry, Councillor Reid and Councillor Burgess.
yes.
Yeah,
Put
that-
the original.
Yes, they're merging the motion,
And
and that's what's being debated.
my understanding was that the motion, sorry, I should make sure is that the motion was moved by councillor Reid and councillor Burgess. I'm not aware that you voted on that at this particular point in time. So this could be either a foreshadowed motion or an amendment.
So it was up on the board as an alternate motion.
Yeah.
Hence I was trying to check
No,
what we're
so
doing.
it could either be foreshadowed or it could be an amendment.
Through Mr. Mayor, her question, Councillor Cameron, is it your intention to amend the current motion or foreshadow a different one?
It's a foreshadowed motion, not an amendment. I think it goes against what's up there.
Okay, thank you, councillor Cameron.
Okay, just to finish off, I just would like to think that just having a look at the figures, I think we need to be very aware of our cash.
I'd like a point of clarification, if I can.
Thank you,
Are
councillor
we
Reid.
supposed to be debating the foreshadow motion? Because I believe that we debated the motion, and if it fails, then we went to the foreshadow
Yes.
motion.
That's exactly.
So we shouldn't even be talking
No,
about
that's right. Okay, let's get on with the motion before us. Any further discussion on the motion before us?
So I'm looking at a table on page 40 of 61. I need a moment to find that. Now it states there our cash working accounts. One, the NAB, which has over 3 million in that, and the T Corp strategic cash facility with 5 million in that. One's a call, one's a 3-day call. Are we not looking at our cash situation? So I'm not sure why a foreshadowed motion is necessary. So I believe we are meeting our requirements under the guidelines. So I just wanted to double check that.
Well,
I'm not looking at
we can come to that when we're dealing with the foreshadow motion if this motion is not carried, councillor.
I wanted to absolutely clarify that the cash statement is in the report that we're looking at.
What page was that again?
So that's page 40 of 61.
4061.
So you've got it talks about the investment types, the cash working accounts. We've got the NAB working account and the T Corp strategic cash facility. Which I thought lays out our cash situation quite adequately. But if I'm not reading this, if I'm not reading this correctly, then that's 12 years of reading this table incorrectly. So I just want to make sure I know what I'm.
So that's your investments reports. That's the next thing.
That's 6.5.
That's the next agenda item.
Sorry. All right, I'm going to get on the right one then.
It's only one page.
Yeah, it's easy to miss. Okay.
So basically, in the attachments, the third quarter review attachments are at page 351 through 360.
You've noticed that. Well,
352, did you say?
351 That's where they start.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is it okay to have the foreshadowed motion up on the screen while we're reading this as well, so we know what we're actually comparing against? Because yeah, thank you.
Right. Oh, sorry. Right.
Okay, so on page 357, through Mr. Mayor, it tells us our cash at bank figure and our investment status total. And it says that this cash at bank amount has been reconciled to council's physical bank statements, and the date of completion of this bank reconciliation is the 31st. So it tells us what our year-to-date of cash and investment figures are, and our cash at bank. So I'm just
That's correct.
I'm struggling to see why
You're
I'm
first.
happy with the foreshadowed
So there's
motion,
a-
but anyway.
So in the, you're quite correct, councillor Jones, in the, there's the cash and investments budget review statement, comments on the cash and investments position.
With the statement total is 36 million. Okay, we've got
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Kemp.
Yeah, I'll argue against the original motion and not talk about the foreshadowed motion. I think you're right, there is information about cash and investments there, but I think we also need to know what the Office of Local Government is asking us to provide, and that is this particular statement on cash and investments, which is a little bit more detailed about the cash situation and how it's limited by both the external and internal restrictions in regard to the cash situation. And I just note that we have a situation where at the end of the financial 23 year, we had 11.3 million in cash and cash equivalents. Now we have 8.6 million in cash and cash equivalents, and the budget for the end of 25, in the end of June, is 5.1 million. So what I'm pointing out is that we have a situation where the cash and cash equivalents over time, over the last 3 or 4 years, and going into next year, is declining. So it's going from 11.3 to a budget figure of 5.1. And I think we need to know in detail what our cash situation is on a continuing basis and how that is restricted by external and internal restrictions.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding is these quarterly reports are based on OLG standards, that they expect us to present the reports to you in this format. Now, I think if you want to go further than that, that's something we need to take up with OLG. So OLG says these are the formats of your reports. These are template reports that we have to provide. And if we want more detail or anything, then really at the end of the day, then that needs to be a case to the to OLG to say we need more information in these reports to tell a better story.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just in response, I think we're being asked to do that because this is a format, and it's in attachment 4, I believe, in the guidelines for the quarterly business review. Anyway, well, by all means, check it out, but I think we're being asked to do that already.
So perhaps that's in the investment report.
Do we just take this offline, look at the motion as it is, accept the report, but then look into Councillor Cameron's issue, see if it really is an issue for us, and then take that perhaps in another motion later on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Reid. Sorry, just happy to vote, councillors. I'll put the motion, all those in favour, those against, Declare the motion carried. Councillor Cameron against. Councillor Cameron, did you want to,
Formulate a motion
yeah,
to make inquiry.
or ask for a report or?
Well, I'm just not thinking of my feet that quickly. Yeah, okay, we'll have a motion.
Well, you can put in a
Well,
notice.
I just need clarification about that particular statement that I think that I don't think we need to go, well.
Maybe you can put in a question on notice.
Through Mr Mayor, I'm happy to formulate some words that might meet with Councillor Cameron's approval.
I know you're the adult.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the investment report covers off on this information in the next item.
Let's work your way through.
You have your restricted list.
All right.
I'll let it go.
Okay, did we put that motion?
Yes.
Yeah, we will.
Carried, okay. 6.5, the investment report. Again, there's a recommendation, someone like to make a recommendation? Sorry, Councillor Turner, Councillor Jones.
Thank you. We on 6.5?
Yeah.
Sorry, you.
A little earlier, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's order. I'm not used to it.
Yes, water, is it?
Yeah, it's very good water, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not used to such high quality.
Someone like to move the recommendation?
No, I think it's been about.
Turner and Jones.
I think, yes. Okay, questions? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I'd just like to note on page 39, the summary of movements in council investments. We have two investments totaling 2 million were matured during April 24. There have been no new term deposits during the month of April, so these haven't been rolled over. Council used the net proceeds to fund council operations. And the similar sort of thing happened in the in the previous month, where 1 million of investments was also carried over. So I'm just thinking that with the investment situation, where it seems to me as though we're rolling the total amount of investments down. In 22-23, we had 25 million in investments. By the end of 24-25, the end of the next financial year, we'll have 13 million. So things are happening in the investment area as well, and that is raising some concerns.
So basically, through you, Mr Mayor, we've got working cash accounts and the term deposits, so the short-term deposits are there to supplement those working accounts when we have major commitments that we need to meet. So, for instance, we've got a major roadworks proposal. It can mean that we need to draw down on the short-term deposits to be able to cover off on the expenses incurred on those projects.
Any further comments, questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against?
Sorry,
Councillor Cameron.
no, sorry. I've voted in
Voted
favour.
for.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit slow, getting slow.
Yeah, well, it goes with the grey hair, councillor.
You would know.
Item 6.6, grants update.
Through Mr Mayor. Oh, no. She had a hand.
I did.
She had a hand up.
We'll both. You can do this.
Councillor Butler, Councillor Jones.
Through Mr Mayor, would the CEO like to speak to this issue, because I think it's not often we get to talk about how successful our grants programs are, because we're always looking for more, so we're always disappointed when we don't get the ones, but when we do get the ones, I think we also need to celebrate those wins.
Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Look, This is a good summary of the whole organisation in terms of grant applications that are being made, and for the amounts that we've been successful in achieving. Some of them are very small grants, and other ones are a bit larger. We've also got some grants there for capital works, particularly recreation facilities. But in the time frame, we didn't get any new ones. So these are ones that we've already got, and we're still working on in our works programs. And then the final table there is relating to road capital grants for road works. And these are obviously the bigger ticket items. So often what will happen is that we will undertake the work, pay for that work, and in some instances we will need to be reimbursed for that. So that does affect obviously our cash flows in some of those situations. Just to pick up on some comments that were made at the Gundaroo meeting on the IPNR, the comments from some of the members of the community were that they weren't aware of this report, but they are now aware of the report that we put it up quarterly. The other issue they said is that it would be really good to see all of the grant applications that have been made, including the ones that we weren't successful on, so that we get an appreciation of the level of work, of grant work that is being undertaken. I thought that wasn't a bad idea, because there's concern that certainly some of the community had, particularly in Gundaroo, was that we weren't applying for grants for some of the flood works. That's not necessarily the case. The appropriate grants have not come up for us to be able to apply for at this particular point in time. So again, they're not always available. But I think we can add something along the lines that these are the other grants that we've applied for, which we've been unsuccessful, and then it gives you a sense of the amount of workload that goes into chasing up grants, because grants are an important way in which we deliver projects. It's a big slice of our budget.
Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, through you to the CEO. Thank you for that, Chris. I actually mentioned this to Councillor Jones this morning, that recently we lost a grant, and I'll refrain from saying what I thought, but the community, a lot of people in the community started complaining about, why aren't you getting more grants and so forth. What we seem to have failed is in selling exactly what we're doing. We have an enormous number of grants coming through, and we've been successful. People just don't know what that success rate is, and a few more statistics on that. And certainly this report, I think, was really good when I saw it.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Any other comments? Councillor Campbell.
Would the CEO like to comment on the Grego Mill grant, please? Sorry to be the down.
No, it's. I think we applied for, I think it was about $11 million of grant funding under the regional growth program, federal government growth program, largely for the community components of that project. We got a fairly blunt message the other day to basically say we were unsuccessful, and no further correspondence would be entered into effectively, which was a bit rude. I thought so. I agree. I did canvass a number of other general managers around the region, and certainly Bega and Wingecarribee also had applications in under that funding and were knocked back as well. So it's a little bit, it's a bit difficult when they don't want to talk to you about the grant application. And so the only thing that we can do is look at the ones that were successful and then try and find out reasons why they were successful compared to our project. That will, and we're unlikely to get that from the funding body. We would probably need to go to the individual councils and say, what did you do that we didn't do? And I suspect that they probably did very much similar to us, and for whatever reasons, they were seen as more important than us.
I would like to make a comment on that, comment. I just had a quick look at the figures, not now, but earlier on. I haven't got the figures there, but a lot of them were in the up to $1 million or just over $1 million brackets. And I've been on lots of committees, and sometimes I think it is, let's spread the money as far and as wide as possible. And we're going for 11 million, which would have been a significant chunk of the budget. So, I mean, that might well have been a contributing factor.
It could have been, but that wasn't what the program said.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
So in the wash up from that, I did have a look at some of these successful applications. So of the ones that were going for library and civic upgrades, Mitchell Shire got 15 million and Warble Shire 14.5 million and Heathcote 2 million. So it wasn't the sum. It may have been the level of need in their community, or it could have been other infrastructure issues in terms of, this is the community that was impacted by fire or floods as well. So we don't really know from what deficit those communities were coming from. But certainly, I think approaching Mitchell Shire and Warble Shire in the first instance, and also Heathcote, would be my go-to as going for similar projects as civic precinct upgrades and libraries, and they got their big ticket amount.
Check them out. Yeah.
So
That's a good point.
let's go and ask.
All three of those are in Victoria.
Yes.
Regional Victoria.
Yes.
And we're certainly through no lack of effort and investment in the application that's been put in. I mean, every T was crossed, every I was dotted, in some cases twice. So they're no more maximum. That's what we did.
Please, Mr. Mayor. This is usually Councillor Jones's job, but she's forgotten now, so I'll do it for her. I just want to commend all the staff that have done this, because that is a huge amount of grants, and I love seeing this report come through quarterly. Just the small things that you think, oh, that's not a lot of money, it makes such a huge difference to some of these communities. And I just want to really make note on the Murrumbidgee field irrigation, the storage shed and the amenities building. That has been an absolute game changer to that community, and everyone is just so grateful. And I remember when we quickly tried to adjust that, and I want to acknowledge our previous Director for Infrastructure and Assets, James Dugdale, who very quickly drew up a map of what a shed could look like in about an hour before the meeting, and it was, and we have it now, and we've moved into it, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And so I don't believe we have a grants officer on staff at the moment. Do we contract a grants officer?
We at the moment we're doing, through you, Mr. Mayor, at the moment we're doing a combination of both. We do have a grants officer on board. She's sitting right behind you. She's doing another job. But we also do, some managers will be will lead the grant writing exercise and engage with our grants officer and for a couple of key projects we've tested the waters by using a professional grants writer to assist us with those, and at this stage I'd have to say that professional grant writers haven't been particularly successful for us. Not quite sure why, because they've done a fantastic job in assisting us to convey a story about why we believe we should be eligible for those. Now we're going to continue with that approach. So it's a bit of a mix and match, and hopefully we'll get more successful as we proceed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Butler. Okay, happy to vote, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.7, the Australian Tax Office class rulings. There's a recommendation.
Happy to move.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Councillor Abbey. Any discussion? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I declare the motion carried. Risk management framework, there's a recommendation. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Reid, thank you. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.9, Seniors Week overview. Again, a recommendation. Councillor Turner and Councillor Reid.
Through Mr. Mayor, just to comment on that, we're going to look at how we manage some of the parts of that program, particularly when we have people who make bookings and then are a no-show. So we're looking at the concept of a deposit. You get it back if you attend. If you don't attend, you'll lose the deposit. So that's something we're trying to look at to make sure that we've got these programs at full capacity, rather than. I understand if people get sick or whatever at the last minute, but it would be really nice if we could actually fill all the spots on all of our programs under that. Robin does a fantastic job in running those. So.
Oh,
When I first got onto council, these didn't exist. We had any activities for example, youth had to be generated from the actual youth committee and go for grants and all kinds of things. And it was a lot of work, and it was very, very challenging to consistently deliver. What we've seen our staff achieve here is a wonderful program that has engaged both our seniors in this instance and our youth earlier on in the year in a way that builds community. And I've had the privilege of attending some of these functions just recently at the library with the Waste to Art program for the kids, and hearing some of the stories from the road trip to the festival as well. I just want to commend not only the state government for providing this funding, which assists us to deliver it, but also the staff that go above and beyond to make sure that everyone's comfortable when they're on the activities, and the sharing of this joy and connecting, particularly after COVID, when I think a lot of depression really set in and people got out of the habit of connecting, and feeling like there's a lot of cost of living pressure. And so knowing that you can confidently make a booking, and that this isn't going to affect people with fixed incomes, I think is a really important thing for our community. So I commend staff and I commend the program.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As usual, Councillor Jones stole all of my thunder. However, I've got used to that over the years. And long may it last. I congratulate the staff as one of the people in this room who actually identifies as a senior. I appreciate what was done. I didn't take part in any of the seniors' events. I don't think I'm old enough.
Get off.
All of my compatriots who attended them said they were absolutely fantastic in their command, and they certainly have lifted the profile of the Yass Valley Council. And the staff that we commended, thank you very much indeed on behalf of those of us on the penultimate end of the spectrum.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Turner, I'll let you know that I booked a TGV from Nice to Paris on the last night. And I had to sort of put myself down as a senior.
It comes as a shock.
Sneaks up on us. Okay. So we've got a motion. Had all the discussion we need. I'll put the motion, all those in favour. Those against, declare the motion carried. 610, the internal audit charter. Here's a recommendation.
So moved.
Thank you, councillor Abbey. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Reid. Any discussion? Put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 611, water rebate, undetected.
Move 611 be moved to confidential.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Butler. Put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Notice of motion nil, questions with notice nil, minutes and recommendations of council committees. 9-1, Murrumbateman playground, dealt with that. 9-2, minutes of the Crago Mill Precinct project held on the 18th of April.
Councillor Abbey.
Councillor Abbey. And you second it. Oh, Councillor Reid. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron.
I have been talking a little bit lately about the fact that we may be drifting into confidential sessions too easily. I think unfortunately this particular one is indicative of how bad things can get. If you have a look at this report or of the minutes, there is actually no information. This particular committee was established to not only report to council on the progress of the project, but also to the community. And what we have happening here is a couple of motions, 3 motions actually, one to close the meeting at 4:15 and one to open it again at 5:45. So for an hour and a half, this committee met and discussed something, I presume. I hope they just didn't waste their time. I'm sure they went into a lot of deliberations about quite a number of things that might have been very important and very serious, but no information came out. And I think that's not good. And the CEO recently indicated that this was not satisfactory because some information should be getting out about the progress of the thing. And this is why the committee was established in the first place. So I think we have to be a little bit more careful. And I think in regard to this particular meeting where the CEO was not present, I believe, we need to be a bit more aware that some aspects of the deliberations should be confidential, but perhaps not all, and that we do need to service the community by providing them with information. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I share the sentiments of Councillor Cameron. I certainly believe that there is a lot more information that could be deliberated on in an open part of a meeting, and that was on my agenda to talk to the project manager who wrote the report, that we just need to make that separation between this is the things that we can talk about openly. These are the things that need to be dealt with in closed session. So we'll hopefully by the next meeting we'll have something a little bit better.
Councillor Campbell.
Just
Technical term, sorry.
That's all right. Mistaken
You
identity.
get into a habit.
Mistaken identity. I just wanted to actually ask a question about the minutes, because it says quite clearly that Councillor Cameron was there.
I have read, sorry, in answer to your question, I was not at that meeting. No, I was not at that meeting. At the pre-council meeting, I asked for that to be changed. I was not at that meeting. Sorry, councillor Zana.
Yeah, you mentioned it on Tuesday.
Yeah, I did.
We'll fix that up, because I do remember you saying that.
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Oh, yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I was a bit confused when I read it too, because I would have thought that even if these are the only things that can come out of that meeting, then a confidential set of minutes would have been distributed
As
to
well.
be considered as well. So without my notes that I took during that meeting, I would have absolutely no idea. It's a long time between meetings, and we've got a bunch of committees in between. So I absolutely concur with Councillor Cameron and the CEO that we have a problem and we need to rectify this quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Okay, prepare to vote, councillors. I'll put the motion, all those in favour. Those against, Councillor Cameron and Councillor Jones. Number 9.3, minutes of the Murrumbidgee Recreation Grounds Focus Group meeting held on the 23rd of April. Is there a report and a recommendation? Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Butler and Councillor Aggie. Any discussion?
That's really Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great example of when you hold a focus group, you're not bound by the normal conditions of a committee in terms of the fact that we've got a great detailed discussion of what was actually discussed, as opposed to requiring any particular resolutions, which I don't believe focus groups are held to in terms of trying to make any resolutions. But I was gratified that we got some detailed discussion there, and I appreciate whoever was the note taker.
Councillor Jones, any other comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Minutes of the Local Traffic Committee held on the 3rd of May. There is a recommendation. Councillor Abbey, seconded. Councillor Cameron. Any comments? Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 9.5, minutes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting held on the 7th of May. There is a recommendation. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Reid, thank you. Any comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 9.6, minutes of the Rescue Committee and Local Emergency Management Committee held on the 9th of May. Again, there's a recommendation. Councillor Reid, seconded. Councillor Abbey. Any questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. There's notes of the Astrologers Club Memorial Hall Advisory Committee meeting held on the 9th of May.
We'll receive the new report.
Councillor Turner and Councillor Rowe. Any questions?
Actually, it's just come to my attention that there is a paper version on the PC. In what way is this different from what's been
The meeting notes, but because there was no quorum,
Thank you, thank you.
they were written up as minutes, but there was not a quorum, so we had to redo them.
Motion, all those in favour?
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Apology accepted.
I'm just looking at the general discussion, regarding the backlash the RSL is receiving, regarding the Aboriginal flag and the replacement with the New Zealand flag for the Anzac Day commemorations. This was a clear guidance that we gave at the time regarding that flag would need to come down in preference to the in deference to the New Zealand flag at these occasions.
Exactly the same as the New South Wales flag.
Exactly. So I'm just wondering what communications have occurred since that time with any individuals or organisations to assist state clearly what our flag protocol is.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this stage, we haven't contact with the Aboriginal community, but we're looking at trying to get a message out in relation to what was agreed to as part of the discussions when we had that debate about to fly the flag or not to fly the flag and all of those sorts of things. The consensus was at that time was that the Aboriginal flag will be flown at the cenotaph basically all year round, other than the days of Anzac Day and Remembrance Day, where other flags would be flown instead. And that will continue to occur until we look at a different flag pole arrangement. And if we just put up individual flag poles, that would mean that the Australian flag then doesn't fly over the cenotaph. It would then it would be outside the cenotaph, which I don't think is very helpful. But one of the suggestions was made was to look at a flag pole where you can fly three flags within the cenotaph area. So that we need to go through a process of discussion on that with the sub-branch of the RSL, and I think we also need to look at some of that funding for programs for remembrance, and it is put out by, I think it's a Department of Veteran Affairs.
Well, noting that the Aboriginal Advisory Committee of the day back in 2020 advised that there was a successful recommendation to put up the Aboriginal flag on Memorial Hall itself, and through your own mayoral minute, Mr. Mayor, I think it was in 22, we resolved to address this issue with a three-tier poll. What is our timeline for this?
Well, it'll be subject to grant funding. The idea was to put a grant application in under the program of I can't remember it right. It's a really commemorate rules around the place. It's a small grant program to basically remember our returned soldiers and those that didn't return. So that was the suggestion that we've made. But I think there's a couple of steps that we need to do beforehand, and that is to make sure that we're consulting with the sub-branch of the RSL and the Aboriginal community, because I think that's about the only way we can actually
we need the concurrence of Councillor Turner.
At the risk of closing debate. If I'm maybe allowed to just make comment without closing debate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Want to jump on it?
Flag protocol is written down for everybody to know. It's not just the Yass, it's for everybody. And it's not just Anzac Day and other. It is Memorial Days. It is when visiting dignitaries are coming. If my good friend King Charles comes, we'll be flying the Union Jack. That's the protocol. And I think that apart from being also the chair of the Aboriginal Consultative Committee, I think it's important that that is on the agenda for the next meeting, an important part of the agenda of that meeting, because it is essential that the Aboriginal community understands that the flag protocol takes precedence over everything else. And it's not up to council to make up a mind who flies what. It's up to the protocol that says who flies what. I have always been an advocate of only one flagpole on the cenotaph, and I believe that's still to be the case. My understanding is that there are some reservations within the returned soldier community that the tri-flag solution of is essentially a naval solution. It's a naval tradition of flying flags, and it was pointed out to me that we are a long way from the sea. But I do appreciate also that in many places around the country, the three flag solution flagpole has been adopted, and I see no reason why in the event of discussion with the RSL that we cannot come to that. I'm very much against having a third flagpole there. I think we've got one too many there now. And I would like to see a solution that brings us back to a single flag at that memorial. And we can have 4 or 5 at Craig Mill, and we can put them up and down as the whim of the community determines.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Any further discussion, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Okay, well, that seems to have that concludes the open session of council. So I'd like to move that we go into closed session. Councillor Butler, Councillor Turner. Thank you, Al. See you next time.
Terry got through that without a question. I'm disappointed in